And we're back for yet another FNAF tier list. The first tier list that we did got a crazy amount of views. As of the moment I'm recording this, it has now gotten to 9,000 views. I don't know what in the world I did for that video to somehow go viral, but it did. Like, I'm accustomed to, like, at most maybe 90 views. Like, I have a couple of videos that have made it there, but 9,000? That's crazy! So before I actually started on this tier list, I just wanted to say thank you so much to absolutely everyone who watched the video, all the thousands of people that watched the video, liked it, and the over like 150 people that subbed within the past month and a half. That is insane. Like, I don't know how in the world it happened. I guess I just got blessed by the algorithm. Thanks, YouTube. And by the way, one of my last TikToks too now has 11,000 views too. Anyways, now going back to the video here. The first time we did a tier list, we ranked all the FNAF characters from the scariest to the least scariest. And now we're ranking all the FNAF games. And not just to see what is the scariest FNAF game, but just overall we're trying to see which one is the best of the FNAF games to the worst of the FNAF games. Only one game will take an individual spot. So without further ado, let me show you where I rank all of them. We're starting with FNAF 1, the one that started it all. The one that was supposed to be Scott Cawthon's original swan song, only for him to find out that it would absolutely blow up, and then spawn sequels right after that. Only months after the game blew up too, so he did quick work. But yeah, FNAF 1. What really drives FNAF 1 is the gameplay and just the fear that you get from these otherwise cute looking animatronics that you wouldn't expect, they're trying to murder you. But at night, they can get more and more aggressive, to the point where they're nearly impossibly aggressive. The overall scare factor is top tier. Story though, it has very little story, but that's just because Scott Cawthon didn't know that the game would become super successful. So there wasn't much in the story besides, oh, someone came into the pizzeria, killed 5 children, and now the place is about to close at the end of the week. And now you're just a random security guard that's trying to survive 5+ nights at Freddy's. For some reason, you also decided to work a 6th and 7th night. Why? No freaking idea. A lot of good came out of FNAF 1, honestly. And it's the reason why everything that we have is here. So obviously, FNAF 1's gonna set the standard. I'm gonna say for now, it's gonna be at the middle child, because it's gonna set the standard in these FNAF games. Alright, FNAF 2. FNAF 2 definitely continues building onto the mystique of FNAF 1 with more new animatronics alongside the old set. The story's fleshed out quite a bit better. Now we get more than just, 5 missing children. Now we get more about, someone trying to come in on purpose to murder children, and hence why the toy animatronics have technology that'll help detect criminals. Criminal. And we get a little more about things like, what we now know as the Bite of 87! FNAF 2, gameplay-wise, when it came to the mechanics of the animatronics, they were very simple, but yet somehow they made you have quite a handful there. It would give you a real challenge. Of course, at this point, so many people have conquered FNAF 2 by now. I am unfortunately not one of them yet. Maybe eventually I will if you guys want to see that happen. Overall, it was certainly a little better than FNAF 1. I will give it that. So because of that, it's going to go into 4th place. FNAF 3. Let's dig real deep into FNAF 3. Out with the old, in with the new. We're in a place called Fazbear Frights, a horror attraction. We still see the old gang in a phantom form, but then we also get a whole new, brand new animatronic that can actually kill us. Springtrap. You guys already know how I feel about Springtrap just by himself when it comes to a scare factor because of the last video. But if you somehow haven't seen the video, which you should, all I basically said was his jump scare isn't scary, but everything else leading up to the jump scare is actually quite a bit scary, especially when he's in the vents. The best thing about FNAF 3 was certainly the storytelling. I would argue that FNAF 3 had the best storytelling out of all the FNAF games. The minigames, amazing, including the minigames of William Afton, or the purple guy, destroying all of the animatronics, eventually being haunted by the ghost inside, which is the ghost of all the children that he's killed, getting into the Springtrap costume, getting spring locked, and then that's how we're introduced to him in FNAF 3. As well as all the other minigames that paint the picture of, oh, we're trying to set the souls of all these dead children free, which ends in a very wholesome little minigame called The Happiest Day, where we finally get to see all the souls of the children laid to rest. That right there was the perfect ending. And we were almost led to believe by the end of the game itself that Springtrap had burned alive in Fazbear Frights, only to then find out that he wasn't completely burned alive and somehow survived the fire if you were to brighten up the picture that's in the end of the final night. For me, FNAF 3 had a perfect blend of scares and, most importantly, storytelling. And that, for me, is the reason why, in my opinion, FNAF 3 will always be the best FNAF game in the franchise. FNAF 3 hit the peak. FNAF 4, this one was honestly kind of the exact opposite of FNAF 3. Okay, I have my problems with the story of FNAF 3. It kind of put in all these new kind of elements that alongside the books would turn FNAF into this very complicated storyline, which would eventually get polished and then fixed by 2 other games, those being the next 2 games that we're going to talk about. But yeah, while the story may not have been the absolute best, it wasn't bad either. It was a little complicated, especially at the end with the box, and I don't know how Scott Cawthon expected us to be interested in the box when all he does is just, bam, here's the box for you. But I'm not going to tell you what it is. In fact, I'm not going to tell you ever. It's just going to be a mystery for another day. Only for us to eventually, through very complicated kinds of theories, kind of eventually find out what the boxes have. Sort of. The scariness of the game definitely carries this though. So just for that, but because it gets weighed down by the weird and confusing new elements of the storyline, I would have to say that FNAF 4 will actually have to go in 6th place. It's crazy, I know, but like, it can't just be the scary part of the game that carries a FNAF game. Especially from FNAF 3 onwards, FNAF was meant to tell a story. FNAF Sister Location. This is the game that definitely polished up a lot of the weird kind of elements of FNAF 4, all while telling a brand new side of the story. Because now we're in a whole new attraction place, where we have to maintain all the animatronics for, birthday parties and whatnot. But along the way, we get into a whole lot of different shenanigans. And then you end your perfect time in the attraction place by having your insides scooped out and replaced with metallic animatronic parts. Bet you'd love for that to happen to you. Sister Location definitely had a great blend of a scare factor alongside the scare factor and the gameplay. The gameplay was definitely a fresh new take on surviving Five Nights at Freddy's. Whole new different kind of way of having to survive every single night. And for the first time ever, we end the night quite literally by getting jump scared. Although that night leads to probably one of the hardest nights in FNAF history. The amount of people I've seen struggle with the night where you have to make sure that the spring locks or the mini arenas don't absolutely obliterate you is insane. For me, overall, FNAF Sister Location, it blended everything quite well. It wasn't a best of both worlds kind of thing, because it could have done a little better, but it blended everything pretty decently well. So for that, I'm putting it on number 3. And then here's where we hit another FNAF peak, as we now get into Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Simulator. Gameplay wise, it was quite a very confusing game. Yeah, eventually you would get the hang of how all the animatronics worked in this game, but it was just weird and quite confusing. But I do like the fact, depending on the ending that you wanted to go for, you could kind of control what animatronics you wanted to save or not. Of course though, if you wanted to get a lot of the endings, you would have to get all of them. Despite confusing at first, it's okay. It's okay. Not very flashy, it's just alright. Scariness, I'd say it's there. I'd say the scariness is there. Once you're finally inside the office, you're having to focus on completing all these tasks in this little monitor, all while looking to your left and to your right to make sure that no animatronics is going to go after you. Then you also have to monitor the room temperature as well, which that's a whole new element to the FNAF franchise. You're getting an absolute handful. And I'm not talking just one hand. Both hands are a handful right now. It is a lot to juggle, and then one little moment that you slip up, especially in the very last nights, and it is all over from there. That game really knows how to get you on your toes, and that's also the case with the animatronics. Most of them are quite scary. Are they scarier than, I would say, FNAF 4? Oh no, FNAF 4 has a beat there, but I would say the scrapped / molten animatronics are they're up there. But what really drives Pizza Simulator is the story. A lot of the loose ends from a lot of the previous games, they're tied up in this. Like, to an extent, the mystery about the box at the end of FNAF 4, and the game gives you a more clear vision why we got to where we got in the first place. Everything story-wise was so good about it, and it all bundled up together to create the perfect ending in Pizza Simulator. And we finally get to see all the animatronics there with all their souls, including William Afton's, get burned and finally put to rest. And we even get to hear that, Henry's in there too, who's the other person that's been involved in this whole story the entire time. And this is where we also finally find out, throughout all the FNAF games, with the exception of FNAF 4 and maybe FNAF 2, despite playing with people that have had various names, in reality, they've all been aliases to one person, that being Michael Afton. And here we are, as Michael Afton, alongside Henry, alongside all the animatronics. Everything is finally being finished. Everyone's being put to rest. And with honestly such a perfect ending, we would have finally said that the game was absolutely the best game that FNAF has ever made. But for me, this game is just not enough. And I'll tell you why. But to tell you why, we have to get to the next game. Or I would say, the next few games. Ultimate Custom Night. FNAF Ultimate Custom Night is just us having to combat all the animatronics of all past FNAF games, and even a couple new ones, and we get to finally clash with all of them all at once, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate style. Gameplay wise, it is super hectic. Immensely freaking hectic. Because it is a roster of about 50 plus animatronics. And about 3/4 of that roster can actually kill you. Actually, more like 5/6 of the roster. There's a couple that don't kill you. They'll either just distract you, or they'll make the conditions around you worse. But a lot of them will kill you, and there's so many different ways that they can kill you. You have to do so many things in that game that it becomes unbelievably insane. In terms of scare factor, it's decent, but my biggest issue isn't any of that. My biggest issue is the story. It has quite a bit of story to it. But a lot of it just kind of undoes everything that finally wrapped up the story in Pizzeria Simulator. And for me, the one thing I really hate from Ultimate Custom Night is actually the reward you get for completing 50/20 mode. Which, if you don't know, when you complete 50/20 mode, all you see is just nothing but just a dark background, and then right in front of you will show an alive, twitching Golden Freddy, which shows that whatever spirit is inside, it has, for some reason, decided to not lay to rest. Despite everything that we did, it will not rest. Later on, we kind of find out that it's more than likely someone named Cassidy, which is one of the 5 missing children that got killed. Story behind Cassidy being that when they got killed, their soul was so hell-bent on trying to make their killer pay. Obviously, that killer being William Afton. And we come to find out, obviously, through all this is that the person that we're playing in Ultimate Custom Night as is William Afton. You come to find out that yes, we had finally put William Afton to rest, but then Cassidy comes in and was just like, no, I don't want him dead. I need him alive so I can torture him and make him suffer. And hence why William Afton is kind of not dead, but then that ultimately means that he's back to being free to do whatever, even if it's at the price of having to live with immense pain. We did everything that we did in Pizzeria Simulator only for it to kind of just be completely thrown out into the garbage because of Cassidy. It's insane. And just for me, I I don't like that. We had the perfect ending to the FNAF story with Pizzeria Simulator, and then it's just basically kind of retconned by Ultimate Custom Night. When Ultimate Custom Night otherwise just would have been a, if it wasn't for that, all the main story would have been was just, we see William Afton going through hell over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. And that would have been fine. That would have been perfect. That would have been the absolute cherry on top. Only for Cassidy to just ruin that. And for me, I hate that so much that I put it 7th. I put this game in 7th. Everything else about this game is alright. But the story, oh my goodness. Like why? And now we get to the newest of the bunch. Now we're at the Steel Wool era, which there being 2 games so far with 2 DLCs. FNAF Help Wanted, aka FNAF VR. You may definitely notice that I have 2 games left, and the only 2 spots open are the last 2 spots. So, FNAF Help Wanted, not a bad game. It puts us into a brand new perspective. This game is just basically kind of like a highlight reel, where we get to relive all of the past FNAF games, or almost all of them. Now, the gameplay wise, especially when you're playing it in virtual reality, is awesome. It looks awesome, and I like it for that. The scariness taken to a whole new level now that you're seeing everything, not just in 3D, but in virtual reality. The fact that it's virtual reality now adds a whole new kind of element to the surprises in the FNAF games, and the jump scares. So gameplay wise, awesome. Scariness, awesome. But story, man. We realize is that the biggest issue with these last 2 games, the thing that massively drags it down for both of them, is the story. So the story being played throughout Help Wanted, you're essentially a beta tester for a game, even though we're kind of playing it, it breaks the meta a little bit here. You're a beta tester called Vanessa, and you're eventually finding things like, candies, plushies, but now you're starting to find cassette tapes. What you don't realize though is the more cassette tapes that you're finding and that you're playing and you're storing, you're awakening a whole new element. What is that element, you ask? It's none other than Glitch Trap. What the hell is Glitch Trap? It's William Afton. Because somehow William Afton was able to inject his brain into the chip of Springtrap, which then got found out by the people that wanted to use the chip to help create this game. Lo and behold, you put everything together and then, bada boom, out comes Springtrap. And now all of a sudden, boom, he's managed to mind control you, even though you tried to resist it. And now all of a sudden you become his reluctant follower. Now you're just kind of doing everything for him at the end of the story. Unless you're going through that one ending where you just get stuffed inside the suit, kind of like how the kids did. He's basically like, hey, let me show you what I did to those kids. And then boom, you suddenly have your next minor antagonist for the next FNAF game. Yes, the person that we were playing as the game before has now become the minor antagonist. And you slowly get to see the makings of Vanny throughout the whole Curse of Dreadbear DLC. So the thing with FNAF Help Wanted, it doesn't really help create a whole new different story. If anything, all it does is springboarding you onto the next FNAF game. The storyline of FNAF Help Wanted is just more like a transitional story for what we would eventually know as Security Breach. And with that, mixed in with the fact that the game also threw away the thing that, we finally were done with William Afton once and for all. It just basically said, oh, you thought he was gone? Guess what? New element. He can insert his brain onto the Springtrap chip. So now he's back. Ta-da! That is the part of the story in Help Wanted that made everyone mad. So everything from all these past FNAF games, everything was done for basically nothing. And yeah, that's basically all of Help Wanted. But before we get to ranking where Help Wanted will go, let's talk about the final game so far, Security Breach. So while Vanessa goes out from being the main character of the last game, Help Wanted, to now becoming a minor antagonist for Security Breach, a whole new place has opened up, which is the Pizzaplex. Basically kind of like this mall area. So now we don't have Vanessa to play as. Who are we going to play as now? Enter Gregory, a small child that randomly just decided to mess around in the Pizzaplex very close to closing hours, and then realizes why there's closing times. And then also finds out why you shouldn't be staying in closing hours during any building associated with Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. it does not go well for you. But thankfully, he has a buddy to help him, that being Glamrock Freddy. So he goes out with just the goal of trying to escape the Pizzaplex, but then starts eventually finding out the mysteries of the Pizzaplex along the way. All while trying to make sure he doesn't get destroyed alive by some massive scary gator, Chica being just Chica, like she is in every other game, and then Roxy smash. Louie, you already did this last video. Stop it. There's also the sun and moon. I have to say that very clearly so people don't lose their minds. Because in the last video, someone actually lost their minds about me calling them sun drop and moon drop. I need to remind people, half of the community say both. So don't get angry at me. I'm saying it so people don't get mad at me. Sun and moon! So people can now shut up. Oh yeah, can't forget Vanny and Burn Trap, which was the ultimate master plan of Vanny after she was controlled by Glitch Trap. Which, spoiler alert, he did come back for about one minigame and one cutscene. And that's it. He got eaten alive by the blob. Eventually, we finally escape the crumpled up and burning Pizzaplex. And again, Burn Trap gets instantly eaten by the blob goes away, Vanessa did all for nothing. Meanwhile, Gregory and Freddy both escaped the Pizzaplex together. And then that's how we get the setting for Ruin, the DLC for Security Breach that came out a couple months ago. So with Security Breach, the best thing about the game are the animatronics. Security Breach has had the coolest animatronics I've seen in FNAF. But for me, that's unfortunately where everything just kinda stops in terms of the good. The bad is just everything else. The story, although I criticize the story, not because of what we currently have for the story, although that is a problem within itself, but also because there was supposed to be a whole lot more. All of it ended up being cut content, which sucks. Not to mention the other thing that made Security Breach very terrible in general, is just how the game came out early on, which was just super glitchy and buggy. Like, it honestly hurt me just how bad the game was. It was just so rushed. But now we get to the big reveal. Which one is the worst and which one isn't? And here's where my decision goes. You guys ready? Security Breach is not the worst game. The worst game is Help Wanted. Hear me out. The reason I put Security Breach over Help Wanted, despite the praise that I gave Help Wanted, was just due to the one make or break situation for a lot of these games. The story. Or, what I should say with Help Wanted, the lack of. And that is why I consider Help Wanted the most lackluster, worst FNAF game ever. It's not to say that it's like the worst, because at the end of the day, all the FNAF games are great in their own right. Even Help Wanted, even Security Breach. But all that Help Wanted did, story-wise, was just help us transition from what we had with Pizzeria Simulator and Ultimate Custom Night, and just retconned it into, oh yeah, by the way, here's what you're about to expect from this brand new story that you're going to see in the next game. Not even this game, the next game. Help Wanted was just made more to be like just the highlight reel of the past FNAF games. Just be like, hey guys, remember all these great moments from these past FNAF games? We do too. All it really did was just set the cards down on the table for what we would end up getting in Security Breach. It didn't create a story, it just helped set down the materials for the next story. For me, it's what makes Help Wanted break. And that is why Help Wanted, in my opinion, is the worst FNAF game ever. No hate towards Help Wanted. I gave it its flowers, but for me, Help Wanted's story wasn't a make. It was unfortunately a break. So here we go. This is it. FNAF 3, Pizzeria Simulator, Sister Location, FNAF 2, FNAF 1, FNAF 4, Ultimate Custom Night, Security Breach, and the worst one being Help Wanted. Let me know where you guys would have ranked all the other games. Let me know where you guys would have ranked all of these games from best to worst. Before I end the video though, I know I'm gonna get questions about where is FNAF World? Where is the other little mini games that Scott Cawthon made in preparation for games like Pizzeria Simulator or Security Breach? Here's the reason why I didn't include those. They don't really contribute much to the main storyline. All those games are just in a happy to be here kind of situation where they just exist. But anyways, that's how I'm gonna wrap up this tier list video. And don't worry, we're not done with FNAF tier lists just yet. I got one more idea. Love you guys, and I'll see you all in the next video.